Welcome to another episode of Four Guys Talking About AI. Today we got three guys. John's not available today, but we've got Greg Sterling, Neal Polachek, and myself. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi, Andy.
Good.
Hey,
How
all
are you?
right. And Neal's back from vacation, so it's always great to have you back here, Neal.
An AI-supported vacation.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your vacation.
Well, I mean, I planned a trip 6 months ago to Scandinavia, and I used, AI tools a lot to plan stuff and to figure out driving distances from place to place, and it worked remarkably well. I'd be happy to share my itinerary with anybody on this who watches this. It was a great itinerary put together in large part by ChatGPT and other AI tools. It told us what museums to go to. It was really, really efficient. It was super efficient. So
What about restaurants? What did you use for
we
restaurants?
reuse that too. And sometimes we just, restaurants, some of it was from recommendations from friends. Some of it was just looking, I think I used Michelin a lot actually for some of the restaurant stuff.
It's so useful on the road. You're on the road and you're somewhere and you're like, okay, what's the best thing to do right here, right now? And,
Yeah.
it just gives you some great ideas. And of course,
What are the hours of this museum?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we used it a lot. The highlights are we did get to see the Northern Lights because we took a 2-hour flight from Helsinki up to Lapland, and one night, and there's an app, that tells you when the Northern Lights are going to be out. And one night we were shut out because it was cloudy. Next night it was 50-50, and we saw the Northern Lights, and it was really, really spectacular. So
amazing.
It was pretty epic. Yeah.
So cool.
Did you use Google anywhere in the trip or in
I
the
used
planning?
Google for getting around a lot, maps.
For maps? Yeah.
And I used actually Apple Maps more than I used Google Maps for a change, because I was looking more for transportation routes and stuff, like how to get the bus from the hotel to the museum or something. And Apple Maps was really good over there. It was really good.
It's great.
Particularly when it came to transportation. Now, if it could help me figure out how to buy the darn ticket, that was the hardest part, was buying a bus ticket one day. It just was, particularly because I guess we were trying to get the senior discount, and it was.
Well, really, it's going to get a whole lot easier because we're going to talk about this story here in a moment about how ChatGPT is integrating a bunch of apps and capabilities to become the new operating system.
Anyway, it was great fun.
That's awesome. Great. Awesome. Great to hear it. Let's jump into our stories. So first, out of the gate, we're going to look at two competing visions of the economy as it pertains to AI. Venture firms like General Catalyst are pouring billions of dollars into automating service industries. They're betting that AI can turn law firms and consultancies into software-style profit machines. But as TechCrunch reports, that vision's running into a messy reality. So we'll unpack that a little bit. Meanwhile, Square is taking a more grounded approach, using AI to help small business owners make smarter real-world decisions using local data like weather, reviews, neighborhood trends to manage their inventory and to promote products that they have that are contextually relevant given those signals. Instead of cutting headcount, startups are using AI to automate more repetitive tasks so that their teams can focus on higher value work, expand faster, scale smarter, and their message is AI isn't killing jobs, it's just creating new ones. And then finally today we'll discuss the blockbuster announcements from OpenAI's Dev Day, where ChatGPT became the official operating system, where they're integrating new tools like Agent Builder, where you can build agents inside ChatGPT. They've got an app SDK, and they've integrated third-party apps like Canva, Uber, Target, and others to open the door to new ways that people are interacting with ChatGPT to buy stuff. And so let's get into it. We can unpack these one by one. The first is this story of venture capital firms like General Catalyst pouring billions into automating service industries. Greg, you wanna lead off with that one?
Sure. I mean, the idea here is that they're going to take services, all kinds of service industries, and Neal probably has some thoughts about this as well. Consulting, IT services, legal services, and others that have been very labor intensive and not very automated historically, and use AI and software to automate them and make them more profitable, for the owners of those businesses. That's the very highest level. Neal, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think that piece pointed out that the services business is a $16 trillion business globally.
It's more of the economy than product sales for sure.
Well, and then more than software too. And software is only $1 trillion global
Right.
industry. So they're looking at the $16 trillion and saying, boy, if you can automate a piece of that $16 trillion, that frees up a lot of capital. They point out in there something that a company called Titan MSP. MSPs are the companies that fix routers and servers and LANs and WANs
IT services, basically.
IT services, and they were able to automate a whole lot of the tasks that MSPs traditionally do. So, and to that note, you said earlier, Andy, about companies are hiring more people. I think generally what the worker person going forward will be doing more high value added stuff. And that's going to speak to how we educate people, how we teach people to think as opposed to just, check a box and check a box and check a box. I mean, the implications of both of these trends are that thinking people will be valued much more going forward. Even in the case of the law firm or the consulting firm, instead of doing rote stuff of research and that's pretty task driven, it's going to be really thinking that's going to be delivering value. That's maybe not a bad thing.
Absolutely. And there's an interview with Reid Hoffman and Peter Diamandis earlier this week that Reid Hoffman echoed the same thing. And they're seeing trends like that at LinkedIn already in terms of, some of these higher value tasks, these positions that are being hired for, and less so the lower minimum wage kind of jobs they're being hired for right now. So we're already starting to see that trend.
And let me just add, Andy, to that. And I think that people in jobs where they're asked to think and they're given the capacity to think are more satisfied in those jobs. I would suspect if you're doing rote tasks, checking a box and filling out a insurance claim, looking at insurance claims, that's got to not be very fulfilling as a career and a job. So,
yeah, especially if you're a high skilled, highly educated paralegal or somebody in a law firm, taking away a bunch of the rote tasks that just come with the job. You got to do it. It's very administrative heavy, kind of a job. If you're able to free those people up so they can do other thinking kind of work, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be more satisfying for those people. They're going to be able to get a lot more done for a client and spend more time building those relationships, which is really what those businesses are about.
Couple of quick points. There was an Adobe survey on customer loyalty in September, and one of the key features of loyalty is excellent service. They're talking really about, it's very abstract, pricing, quality products and services, brand experience, brand reputation, but customer service ranks very, very highly in both the positive and negative aspects of loyalty. So, if people experience poor service or rude and disrespectful service, they're going to abandon the brand. So, in the case where AI is taking over a lot of the dreary tasks and truly freeing up people to deliver a better experience and more personalized service or a higher level of service, that's a great thing and will contribute to brand loyalty. To the extent, however, that AI is substituting, a lot of the attitude, I think, toward customer service automation is, well, we're going to have this AI experience and it's going to save costs for us and it'll be a lot of DIY stuff for the customer. A lot of those experiences are very bad and are degrading of the brand. And so, depending on how you think about it and how you implement it, it can either really lead to a better experience and more loyalty, or it can degrade loyalty by giving you a bad experience.
I think the magic is that AI stuff and all this stuff has got to go on in the background. And I don't want to experience AI as the consumer, but I want it to help the person who's helping me do a better job.
Let's talk about voice ordering, because this is one of the pieces of the Square item here. So one of the things that Square rolled out was voice ordering, I think initially for restaurants, but perhaps more broadly for businesses later. In a restaurant or fast food, quick service context, they don't really do fast food, but quicker, sort of more informal dining. You're going to get an automated agent on the phone who you can interact with and order from, and that order is going to be processed automatically, and presumably it's going to just be delivered to you, or it'll be there for your pickup, or whatever the methodology is. And how do you feel about that? Is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
I think done right, it's a great thing. But
you said you didn't want to deal with AI.
Hold on.
You said you didn't want to deal with AI.
The reason Domino's stopped taking phone orders years ago is because if I said pepperoni and you heard peppers, wrong, I'd get it wrong, and there'd be a failure in getting me the pizza I wanted. So I think that if these things can get pepperoni and not peppers correct, then I think that's a better experience than checking the Domino's app and saying, I want pepperoni and I don't want garlic and all that stuff. The question is, will it be as good as it can, as me checking those boxes? Because if not, then you get the whole failure on the pizza, and you get into that whole thing.
There's a lot of risk. I mean, Andy, I know you want to say something, but there's a lot of risk of delivering the bad version. They have to do the good version. Go ahead.
You're both right with this. What I'll say is that voice AI today, the quality of it is superior. I mean, it's truly amazing, and it can accomplish, Greg, Neal, what you're saying in terms of differentiating peppers and pepperoni, and even nuances in a discussion. And it can even negotiate for you. You can really train these voice AIs to be able to have a thinking conversation where it can have a decision tree kind of capability built into it, and also have a knowledge base behind it that gives it a lot of information, so it can deliver a great customer experience and have a lengthy conversation with somebody, even if they're peppering it with lots of questions. It can have a really deep conversation, and then it can steer the conversation towards qualifying a prospect or asking it that prospect other questions that are really helping to solve problems that customer has. And then it can take orders, or then it can take schedule a meeting, or whatever the objective is for the business. But it can do those things to deliver a great customer experience in the end. But at the same time, Greg, you're right. I mean, there still is a limit to what it can do.
I'm not impugning AI generally or voice AI generally. I'm just saying you have to deliver the good version. I mean, Klarna got rid of its whole customer service group.
On the pizza thing, in the olden days, it was a person talking to me about whether it was pepperoni or peppers. And they didn't bother to say, are you sure you want peppers, not pepperoni? Now, I think an AI trained thing will say, I heard pepperoni. Is that correct? What you want? You want pepperoni, not peppers. And so the experience could actually be better.
Sure.
It is better a lot of the times. And a few other reasons why it's better is because it's able to capture data from a prospect that a human just wouldn't, right? So every phone call that comes into a business, for example, now can go into a CRM for that business. That wasn't happening before. Somebody had to manually write that down and then type it in, or maybe just type it in directly. So that happens. Why is that important? Just that alone, because those are new leads for that business. Now that business can do retargeting to those people, or they can send out a text message to send an
Right.
offer to those people, or what have you, get lookalike audiences around people who already call. Just that data point alone is a huge advantage. But then you have all of the input from those conversations where that business now can get new insights into what actually do
100%.
people want. And that's a
Yeah.
game changer for a business that doesn't have resources where they can go hire, Deloitte or McKinsey or another firm like that to do some data analysis and do, time motion studies sitting side by side with people who are answering the phones. They have all that data that's available to them, and very easily you can run models against that input to be able to give that business insights to say people are asking more for this and less of that, whereas you thought it was the opposite. And that alone is a game changer for a lot of businesses. Just right there. Not to mention all the other customer support benefits and customer experience kind of benefits that go along with not having to talk with somebody at the front desk that really doesn't want to talk to them.
So small businesses historically have been very bad about responding to leads. There are a lot of warm leads that they lose as customers because they don't get back to them in a timely way. This is one way to address that, to ensure that a lead is never missed. And to your point about the intelligence coming out of these calls, that's absolutely correct. For years and years and years, people did call tracking, which included call recording for analytics purposes, but they never analyzed the calls because it was a painstaking manual process. Now with AI, they can, and it's invaluable data about customer demand and all kinds of other things about the business. It's a great feedback tool. Absolutely.
I'm intimately in this because this is what we build at my company, We Level, and that's these kinds of experiences we hear it all the time from our clients that they never would have had these insights as to what people are asking for, or they're booking more sales meetings as a result of it. And so, and on the customer side, customers are saying that they prefer it because they get answers to their questions immediately, and they don't have to leave a voicemail and have somebody call them back and all these other benefits. So what that does is, to the point of this article, is that it frees up the team members at that company to now do higher value things that really build those relationships with their customers, create that kind of loyalty for that business and that customer. And that's the kind of stuff that ultimately the services the growth of the business, and it provides a different level of quality customer experience for the customer.
I want to jump in on customer experience for 1 second here, because at one of the places we stayed in Sweden, in Stockholm, it was the most incredible customer experience lodging we've ever had. And they did two things that were amazing to me. I asked one morning as we were going out, I said, hey, I want to watch the Ryder Cup, which is the golf tournament that was going on. So we got back to the room, and on the TV was the Ryder Cup. I didn't have to turn on the TV. They just had it on, right? And they had used an app that it was running on. They downloaded it and they put it on my TV in a room. The second was, we accidentally put on the door, like, don't make up our room, but that was a failure on our part. So at like 6 o'clock in the evening, somebody who was not even a housekeeping person came and did our room. The point was, this place only knew how to say yes. They had been trained to say yes, figure out solutions. It was the most off the chart customer experience we've ever had.
And that has nothing to do with AI. That has nothing to do with AI.
But I think in the background of all this, they're using a lot of technology that is not at all seen by the customer. It's a very warm and kind of home-like experience, but behind the scenes,
You're
I gotta
speculating,
believe they're
You're
using a
speculating.
ton of technology.
Well, so the most important thing about that story that has relevance to this conversation is that they had a culture and an attitude of service. And
Absolutely.
let's assume that what you're saying is true. The technology enabled that or supported that. And in many American corporations, by contrast, technology is seen as a way to offload service
The
or
human experience.
to deliver service in a cost-effective way for the company that is going to be good enough for the customer. But it doesn't resemble what you're describing, which is a commitment, a very deep commitment to delivering the best customer experience.
All Lori and I wanted to do was be at a staff meeting to hear how they train the people, say yes to everything. I mean, it was a remarkable place. It really was.
It's a culture thing. I mean, it's a
And
culture thing.
every one of them said yes, or
All right.
let me figure that out for
You
you.
can imagine. I mean, we've talked about these kinds of wearables that are, that are always listening, and it's a little creepy consumer side to be able to do that. But if you're in the hospitality business, it's actually an interesting use case. Is have everybody that works at the hotel, for example, and have it listen so that it can distill down actionable things that it can do for the customer. And I could see a really interesting use case with that.
That's the forthcoming Johnny Ive, wearable thing, whatever that is.
Whatever it'll be an operating system. They're definitely going in that direction. And maybe this is a good pivot point for us to talk about OpenAI Dev Day. ChatGPT is clearly becoming an operating system. That's their move here. They've created new tools like Agent Builder. So Agent Builder is where you can create workflows, triggers, sequences, and events that make an agent operate a certain way. And you can do that right within OpenAI actually now. They have an app SDK where if you have an app, you can integrate your app into ChatGPT. So integrations like Canva, Uber, Target, and others are integrating their apps into ChatGPT so you can use it natively. And you can browse and book and even buy directly inside ChatGPT. And tied into this is another announcement with Shopify, where Shopify and Etsy and others are making it so that you can now purchase directly in ChatGPT using Stripe as the payment platform. So they're plugging in all of these capabilities and making it so that it's not just the App Store, it just natively works within their platform. Those are big deals. And then the other announcement they made this week was around Sora 2.
And Sora is their video app.
Yeah. So Greg, let's talk a little bit about some of these major advancements this week.
Too many things to talk about, and I'm not able to talk about the agent kit and the agent builder in the way that you are, Andy. But the thing that really struck me, first they said they had 800 million weekly active users globally, which is up from 700 million, however long ago, a couple of months ago. The apps in ChatGPT was really interesting. So they created an apps SDK for any developer or publisher, presumably, who wants to sort of render their app in a way that can be used within ChatGPT. So natively in the experience, as you point out, hypothetically, this could extend to any vertical or any scenario. I'm looking for real estate listings in a particular community. I want to find I want to rent an apartment. It'll give you that information in its normal sort of search results, and then it'll ask you if you want to use Zillow to do that same query again. It's been sort of sporadically showing up for me over the last few days, but assuming it'll kind of stabilize and be available widely, then you get a Zillow experience that has kind of Zillow branded experience, which I think is very important for these publishers. And you can interact with it, and it's very image rich and visual. So taking this to its kind of logical conclusion, you are reproducing a version of the internet within ChatGPT. It becomes like a different kind of browser experience where you can ask anything and interact with any piece of information and get the rich app experiences, whether it's dining or finding local services or maps, hypothetically, or Coursera for training. It's really pretty boundless depending upon how widely adopted this is. And that has a lot of implications for both competitors and for publishers, and directories that otherwise want direct traffic. And I think the fact that this is branded is very significant. Previously sources were pretty marginal. There wasn't very little branding. You didn't really see sources unless you actively looked for them, opened the right panel, or kind of clicked on the sources. And now this is a much more branded experience. So I could imagine early adopters will want to get in there and be the, it's a new opportunity to kind of get in front of the consumer, get in front of the user. And it can close the gap with Google in certain ways, in certain categories, if this is done well and if there's enough coverage. Many ifs, but pretty interesting. And then the other thing that I would speak about briefly is Sora, which is its video app, as you mentioned. Sora 2 is now available, and that got 1 million downloads in less than 5 days. These video and image creation apps have been very popular. Nano Banana from Google and Sora, both wildly popular. And they have some copyright issues and some deep fake problems that people are concerned about, but really, consumers seem to be eating it up. And just one other thing that I would mention, sort of for context, a recent Pew Internet survey, they've been asking for the last, bunch of years, how do you feel about AI in your daily life, and doing pretty detailed surveys. And what they found is that there's a high degree of ambivalence. People are anxious and concerned, but there's more and more usage. They don't always agree what the best use cases are, but there's a pretty high degree of usage being reflected there, despite the ambivalence, and more frequency. And this is what Neal and I found in our survey data as well, is that people are moving from a kind of casual to more intense usage. But that coexists with these concerns that people seem to have. It doesn't seem to be impeding their usage, hence the 800 million. But there are these sort of concerns in the background that exist. So I just say that for context, not to take us down a path of.
Greg, do you think the concerns are just because it's new and it's a little bit, like I'm going down this path and they hear stuff, right? Consumers hear stuff, they read stuff, they read about the exceptions, right? Where sadly the kid claimed he committed or the suicide issue. They hear those stories, and so therefore they're a little bit more hesitant or untrusting, but maybe not based on their own experience is I guess what I'm suggesting.
I think it's complicated. I think that there's, in our surveys, we find a high degree of trust of AI. But if you present people with particular scenarios, then they hesitate more. If you say, well, what about this? Or what about this? Or what about this? Then they have some concerns. I think there's a sense, the novelty and the fear of change, I think, is very real. There's a lot of uncertainty about how this is going to play out. People have heard about these doomsday scenarios, science fiction for years and years and years. Have 2001 and all these dystopian Terminator, all these stories that's in the background, but it doesn't seem to be stopping people from using it, and usage continues to grow. And so I think that's
my point, is that they're getting benefit. There are people benefiting significantly from using these tools.
So also, before I jump into that, Sora had, or OpenAI had, a really interesting go-to-market strategy with Sora 2, their app, by making it an app and not just bundling it into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
They made a standalone app. They went to market.
Well, it's a social network. It's also a social network.
It's a social, right? Exactly, and that was interesting.
Like Instagram or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can see where they might be going with that, and really going after this platforming operating system kind of play. And so when you extrapolate this stuff out, you look at where their next play might be with hardware, likely next year. Could be
browser,
glasses, could be a browser, it could be a computer, an AI first computer, and voice, and make it multimodal so that you can use voice. You can you got video, you can images, everything that's natively built into that device that is just a lot different than what you can get on, when you buy a Mac, for example. And Johnny Ive was a guy who created all that. So he's the guy who would know how to create a better version of that better than anybody. So you can kind of see where this ends up going at the consumer level. And then, from a business standpoint, just the fact that Sora 2 has gotten 1 million downloads in the past 5 days, that's an app that's on fire. And we're now starting to see a bunch of these videos on Instagram and on YouTube and so forth. It's just going to get a lot more. What's interesting about that is that on the one hand, there's a trust factor that we're talking about. On the other hand, it's almost like flying in the face of lack of trust, because you're making up videos that are deep fakes or that are just satire and purposely not trustworthy. So the confusion is pretty high there with whether you trust it or not, or how do you actually feel about
these app and video, the image creation tools and the video tools are a real boon to creativity. People worry about them diminishing creativity, but I think for people who are not inherently creative or not artistic, it's given them enormous capabilities that they wouldn't have. And so I think that's the people are responding to the creative dimension of this as much as anything else. The experience of visualizing something that you think in your mind, and then you can create it.
Especially when you can automate a bunch of this stuff, right? So with the agent builder that they have, or the app SDK, and then you plug in a bunch of these tools to create these workflows. It's pretty amazing where this is going, and the amount of creativity that an individual has to be able to have an idea and then turn it into something material like that.
Yep.
Pretty amazing. All right. Well, so we are up on time today. So thanks, guys. That was a great conversation. Tons of exciting stuff happening in the space. And we will be here next week to talk more about it. So for anybody listening, please like and subscribe, share it with your friends. And thank you so much for listening.